Welcome back to the third episode of our Mughal Empire documentary series. In part 2, we explored the remarkable achievements of Akbar the Great, who transformed the Mughal Empire from a state held together primarily by military force into a unified civilization based on administrative efficiency and religious tolerance. He created the systems, the values, and the cultural foundations upon which the empire would flourish for centuries to come. Today, in Part 3, we explore what many historians and observers consider to be the absolute peak of Mughal civilization, the moment when the empire reached its zenith of power, wealth, and cultural achievement under the Emperor Shah Jahan. This is a story that combines military conquest, political power, extraordinary wealth, and an almost obsessive dedication to art and architecture. It is also fundamentally a story about love, one of the greatest love stories in human history, and how that personal devotion to one woman inspired the creation of what many consider to be the most beautiful building the world has ever seen. This is the epic of the Taj Mahal, but it is also so much more than that. Shah Jahan was born in 1592 as Mirza Shihab-ud-Din Muhammad, and from his earliest years he was carefully groomed for power and prepared to inherit one of the world's greatest empires. He was the grandson of Akbar the Great, which meant that he carried in his veins the blood of the empire's most legendary founder and administrator. He was educated in the best traditions of Mughal learning, trained in the military arts from childhood, and prepared through every possible means for the awesome responsibility of ruling an empire that spanned a continent and encompassed hundreds of millions of people. His father, Jahangir, was a capable ruler in his own right, but his reign was marked by his dependence on powerful courtiers, and particularly on his most beloved wife, Nur Jahan, who wielded extraordinary political influence. When Jahangir died in 1627, Shah Jahan, then 35 years old and at the height of his strength and capabilities, ascended to the throne and immediately set about consolidating complete and undivided power. He eliminated potential rivals, rewarded loyal supporters, and established his authority beyond any question. Unlike some rulers who inherit power and are content to rest on the achievements of their predecessors, Shah Jahan was determined to not merely equal the great Akbar, but to surpass him in every possible way. He launched a series of ambitious military campaigns to expand and firmly secure the empire's borders. He invaded the Deccan region in southern India, bringing under Mughal control kingdoms and sultanates that had managed to maintain their independence. He secured the empire's frontiers against potential external enemies. Through a combination of military conquest and strategic alliances, Shah Jahan expanded the empire's territorial extent. By the early 1630s, the Mughal Empire under Shah Jahan had reached its maximum territorial extent, stretching from Afghanistan in the north to Karnataka in the south, from the Arabian Sea in the west to the Bay of Bengal in the east. This was an empire of truly unprecedented power and wealth, controlling territories and populations that no previous Indian ruler had ever controlled. But Shah Jahan's greatest legacy was not destined to be his military conquests or his political achievements, significant as those were. Instead, his greatest legacy would be his transformation of the Mughal court into a center of unparalleled architectural and artistic splendor. If Akbar had laid the philosophical foundation and demonstrated the system of governance that allowed the empire to function, Shah Jahan was the emperor who would take those systems and turn them into physical manifestation in stone, marble, and precious materials. He became perhaps the greatest patron of the arts that the world has ever known, commissioning monuments and buildings so magnificent that nearly 4 centuries later, they still possess the power to astound and inspire everyone who sees them. The most famous of these monuments is, of course, the Taj Mahal. But before we examine this iconic and incomparable structure, we need to understand the personal tragedy and the personal devotion that inspired its creation. In 1612, when Shah Jahan was still a young prince, perhaps 20 years old, he fell in love with a girl named Arjamand Banu Begum, the daughter of a Persian nobleman of considerable importance and influence at court. The marriage was arranged according to the traditions and customs of the time, as was virtually universal among royal families. But in this case, the arranged marriage blossomed into a genuine love match, an extraordinary union that would become famous throughout the empire for its devotion and intensity. Shah Jahan gave his beloved wife a new name, Mumtaz Mahal, meaning the ornament of the palace, and she became the most beloved of his wives, the companion of his heart and his counsels. For over 20 years, from their marriage until her death, Mumtaz Mahal was Shah Jahan's constant companion. She traveled with him on military campaigns, often in circumstances of considerable hardship and danger. She bore him 14 children, providing him with heirs and securing the dynasty's continuation. She wielded significant influence at court and was consulted on matters of importance. In 1631, at the age of 38, Mumtaz Mahal died while giving birth to Shah Jahan's 14th child. The death of a beloved in childbirth was not uncommon in this era, but for Shah Jahan it was a catastrophe that shook him to his very core. According to historical accounts, Shah Jahan's grief was profound and all-consuming. His hair turned white almost overnight. For a long period following her death, he withdrew almost entirely from public life, unable to govern, unable to take interest in the affairs of state, consumed by his sorrow and loss. Courtiers were concerned that the emperor might never recover, that the empire might suffer from his incapacity. Gradually, over months, Shah Jahan began to emerge from his grief. When he finally reappeared in public and resumed his duties as emperor, he had made a decision that would ultimately change the world. He would build a monument to his beloved wife that would be unlike anything the world had ever seen. It would not be merely a tomb or a mausoleum, though it would serve that purpose. It would be a monument so magnificent, so perfect, so filled with beauty and artistry that it would immortalize his love for Mumtaz Mahal for all of eternity. It would be a testimony to her worth and to the depth of his devotion. It would be, in his vision, the most beautiful building the world had ever known. Construction of the Taj Mahal began in 1632, just 1 year after Mumtaz Mahal's death, and continued for 22 years, with the structure finally being completed in 1654. The project consumed an enormous portion of the imperial treasury. Estimates suggest that it cost as much as 50 million rupees at the time, an almost inconceivable sum for the era. The project involved the work of over 20,000 artisans, laborers, stonecutters, sculptors, designers, and craftsmen. Architects and designers were brought from across the empire and beyond, drawing on the architectural traditions of Persia, Central Asia, and India. The primary architect is believed to have been Ustad Ahmad Lahori, a master builder of Persian origin, but the final design represented a remarkable synthesis of Persian, Indian, and Islamic architectural traditions.
The Taj Mahal was more than just a mausoleum for Mumtaz Mahal, more than just a tomb for an emperor's deceased wife. It was a temple to love, a monument to the human capacity for beauty and creativity, and the testament to the wealth, power, and cultural sophistication of the Mughal Empire at its absolute peak. When we discussed Part 2 and Akbar's achievements, we saw how he built an empire based on shared values and unified administration. In this part, Shah Jahan takes that empire and elevates it to a level of artistic and architectural splendor that has made it immortal in the minds and hearts of people across the entire world. Shah Jahan's later years were marked by personal tragedy and increasing political instability within the imperial family.
His favorite son, Dara Shikoh, who had been carefully groomed as his successor and who shared his father's love of art, architecture, learning, and relative religious tolerance, became caught up in court intrigues and factional conflicts. Shah Jahan's health declined as he aged, making him less capable of maintaining tight control over the ambitious and competing members of his family and his court. These internal conflicts among his various sons created increasingly serious tensions within the empire. The question of succession began to loom large as Shah Jahan's health deteriorated, and his various sons jockeyed for position and favor, seeking to position themselves as the most likely successor. When Shah Jahan died in 1666, after only the briefest interlude following his death, the empire passed to his son, Aurangzeb, a figure who would take a radically and dramatically different approach to imperial governance, religious policy, and the fundamental values that had guided the empire under his predecessors. In our fourth episode, we'll explore how Aurangzeb's religious orthodoxy and his aggressive military policies would set the empire on a trajectory that, while maintaining its military power and territorial extent for several more decades, would ultimately sow the seeds of its internal decline and eventual collapse. The absolute zenith of Mughal splendor that we have explored in this episode, achieved under Shah Jahan, would give way to an increasingly fractious, divided, and internally conflicted empire.